The kids were brushing their teeth upstairs when she walked past me in the hallway, paused for half a second, and said it. "You're really just a co-parent at this point. That's it. No build-up. No tension in the room. Just a flat statement tossed into the air like it didn't weigh 1,000 bricks. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, I did. They were sitting in my throat like jagged glass. I just didn't know which ones could survive the impact of her voice still echoing in my ears. She turned into the laundry room like she hadn't just changed the entire dynamic of our marriage in 9 words. I stood there with a pair of unmatched socks in my hand, blinking like someone who got slapped without warning. We weren't fighting. We hadn't been fighting. There wasn't even a Cold War. It was more like neutral weather. Like 2 neighbors who used to wave but now just nod from a distance. And I guess that was the problem. She said I was just a co-parent? Fine. I became exactly that. Not bitter. Not sarcastic. Not trying to teach her a lesson. Just reprogrammed. I stopped asking her how her meetings went. Stopped texting when she worked late. Stopped noticing her perfume. If I wasn't wanted as a partner, I wasn't going to keep playing the role. And the strangest part? It was easy. Painful, yes. But easy. Like my body had been waiting for the signal to power down for years. I made breakfast. Packed lunches. Checked homework. I didn't forget birthdays. I didn't skip recitals. I was present for the kids. And nothing else. She didn't notice at first. Maybe she liked the new quiet. The emotional silence. But eventually, the stillness got loud. I saw it in the way she lingered in doorways. The way she started asking questions she hadn't asked in months. Did you eat already? You're going to bed this early? You don't want to talk? And every time, I gave her the same neutral shrug. The one that says, we're fine, aren't we? This is what you wanted. But then came the Thursday. The Thursday that unzipped everything. I came home late from work. Not suspiciously late, just enough to miss dinner. She was sitting at the table alone, half a glass of wine in front of her, untouched. The kids were already in bed. No TV. No music. Just her, staring at nothing. She didn't even look up when I walked in. I walked past her like a ghost. Put my keys down. Opened the fridge. Closed it again. And then, out of nowhere, she said it. There's something I need to tell you. Now, you'd think my heart would start racing. It didn't. It went quiet. Because deep down, I already knew. I sat across from her, in that worn-out chair I once built for her birthday. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her thumb was tracing circles around the base of the wine glass like she was hypnotized. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. And I didn't ask what. Because people only say that when it's already happened. When they're not confessing to a plan, they're just narrating a car crash that already flattened everything. She went on to explain things I had no interest in hearing. I focused on a cracked tile near her foot. Watched the candle flicker in the corner. And when she was done, she waited. Waited for the begging. The yelling. The classic male meltdown. But I just nodded. Okay. That was all I said. I stood up. Walked past her. Went upstairs and kissed my kids goodnight. And when I came back down, I handed her a single sheet of paper. No speech. No drama. Just a letter with a date, a signature, and one line at the bottom. Co-parenting schedule enclosed. Because if that's all I was. She was about to learn exactly what that meant. She didn't read the paper at first. She just stared at it, then back at me, like I had just done something cruel, as if quietly accepting her decision and handing her the logistics of that reality made me heartless. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't spiteful. I was just done pretending. She had drawn the line, and all I did was stop stepping over it. That night, she slept in our bed. I slept on the couch. I didn't even argue for space. I didn't take a pillow dramatically or slam a door. I just grabbed a blanket, turned off the light in the hallway, and disappeared into a kind of silence I didn't know I was capable of. In the following days, the shift was visible, even to the kids. I didn't initiate family dinners. I didn't join her on the couch when she watched her late-night shows. I didn't check to see if she was okay when I heard her crying quietly in the shower. I just existed beside her. Like 2 tenants in the same rental. I made my own dinner. Washed my own laundry. I dropped the kids off at school, packed their snacks, signed their permission slips, everything a good co-parent would do. But I stopped being her emotional sponge. I stopped offering pieces of myself she no longer valued. Then came the subtle, clumsy attempts to reel me back in. She started asking if I wanted to watch something together. Suggested we talk about us. Asked if I wanted to get coffee on Sunday like we used to before the kids were born. I said no. Politely. Without emotion. like someone declining an offer for a free trial they've already canceled. And maybe that's when she started panicking, realizing the emotional rope she'd always relied on was no longer there to tug. One Saturday afternoon, while I was mowing the backyard, I saw her sitting on the porch with her phone in her lap. She wasn't texting. She wasn't scrolling. Just holding it like it was some kind of grenade she wasn't ready to throw. I knew then there was more to her story than she'd confessed. A few days later, while she was at work and the kids were with my sister, I went upstairs to find a charger. Not snooping, just genuinely looking. But curiosity and instinct are close cousins. I opened her nightstand drawer and saw something that didn't belong. A velvet box. Inside was a necklace I hadn't bought her. Elegant. Expensive looking. Nothing like the subtle jewelry I used to give her. No note. No receipt. Just the gleam of something romantic, intimate, personal. And not from me. I didn't get angry. I didn't even feel jealous. I just felt replaced. Like a supporting actor in a life I used to star in. I closed the drawer and walked out. That night, while the kids were asleep, she asked if I wanted to talk. I said, "About what?" She paused. "About us." I gave her a small, tired smile. "There is no us, remember?" She looked away, as if the words were sharp enough to scratch her skin. But I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was just living by her definition. Then she said something that genuinely shocked me. "I haven't seen him in weeks." I ended it. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. But I nodded. "That's between you and your conscience," I said, calmly. "It's not part of the co-parenting arrangement." And that's when her face cracked. She stood there, blinking, breathing hard like I had punched her with a sentence. "Is that really all I am to you now?" And I looked her in the eye and whispered the most honest words I'd spoken in years. Yes. Because once you strip someone down to nothing more than a role, you don't get to act surprised when they wear it like armor. She went upstairs and cried for hours. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, staring at the wall like I was seeing it for the first time. And yet, even after all of that, the breakdown, the reveal, the regrets, something inside me whispered that the storm wasn't over, that the real damage hadn't even hit yet. Because the next morning, I found something unexpected in my inbox. A message from a name I hadn't seen in years. "Daryl, I know this might be strange, but I think you deserve the truth. About a lot of things. Can we talk?" It was her old friend. The one who disappeared suddenly. The one my wife always brushed off as not in touch anymore. And suddenly, all the missing pieces began rearranging themselves into something terrifyingly clear. The email sat there for hours before I even opened it. I hovered over it again and again, reading the subject line without clicking. "We need to talk. It's overdue." Her name was Maddie. That alone was strange. Maddie used to be Ellie's best friend, her maid of honor, her confidant since college. They were practically inseparable. And then, almost 3 years ago, she just vanished. No goodbye, no fight, no explanation. I remember asking Ellie about it once, and she said, "People grow apart, that's all." But I always knew that was a lie. The kind of tight-lipped, shrug-it-off lie that hides something ugly underneath. Still, I never pushed. Because back then, I was still trying to preserve the peace, or at least the illusion of it. But now Maddie was back. Not with a random hello. Not with a friendly catch-up. But with a message that had urgency baked into every word. "You deserve the truth." I clicked. Her message was long, measured, and it didn't waste time. She began by apologizing, said she didn't want to overstep, that she debated for months whether or not to contact me. But recent events apparently had pushed her conscience too far to stay silent. She wrote, "I saw your name pop up in a comment on Ellie's recent post. I know I shouldn't have looked. But something about it, the way she phrased everything, it was familiar. Too familiar. It reminded me why I disappeared in the first place." Then came the part one wasn't ready for. She told me there had been someone before. Not recent. Not the guy my wife confessed to seeing by accident. Not some coworker or faceless stranger. Someone much closer. Someone who had been in our lives, in our home, someone I had once called a friend. Her ex. The guy who came to our New Year's parties. The guy who helped me move furniture when our youngest was born. The guy who once jokingly said, "Man, Daryl, how do you land a woman like Ellie?" That guy. Maddie told me she had found out about the affair 2.5 years ago. She said she confronted Ellie, threatened to tell me, and Ellie flipped, gaslight her, accused her of jealousy, then cut her off completely. She told me to disappear if I valued what little dignity I had left, Maddie wrote. So I did. I read the message twice. Then a third time. My hands were shaking by the end of it. I remembered the exact period Maddie had vanished, and it lined up. Too perfectly. And suddenly all those little memories, late-night texts Ellie brushed off, extra-long grocery runs, inside jokes I wasn't part of, they all began glowing like warning signs I had ignored. But this wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the structure, the layering, the planning. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She had built a new world behind my back, brick by brick, lie by lie. And then, when it crumbled, she demoted me to co-parent like it was some act of mercy. I sat on the back porch with Maddie's message open in my lap, my head pounding with memories I didn't want to relive. I kept asking myself, was there ever a moment she truly loved me? Or was I just the safe option? Later that evening, I decided to confront her. Not with rage. Not even with heartbreak. But with quiet clarity. She was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables like nothing had shifted. The smell of garlic filled the room. She looked up and gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We need to talk," I said. She froze, knife in midair. "About what?" "Maddie wrote me." Her hand twitched. "Just slightly. But enough." "What?" she whispered. "I know about the affair. The first one. The real one. The one you never told me about." She stood there for a second too long, lips parted like she wanted to lie, then just dropped the knife in the sink with a clang. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, as if that somehow made it cleaner. "You did," I replied. "You just delayed it. And now it hurts deeper. Because it was rotting underneath everything for years." She stepped closer like she was going to explain, maybe even cry, but I stepped back. "You don't get to cry now. You already mourned it. You already processed it. I'm the one living in the aftermath, still discovering the dead bodies you buried years ago." Her face twisted, almost like she wanted to lash out. But she didn't. Instead, she turned off the stove, wiped her hands, and walked out of the kitchen without a word. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. Neither did I. She slept in the guest room. I sat on the living room floor with a pile of old photo albums, ones we hadn't touched in years, wondering how many of those smiles had been real. And then, just before dawn, I got another message. Not from Maddie this time. From him. The man she cheated with. And what he wrote was worse than anything Maddie told me. The sun hadn't even broken the horizon when my phone vibrated beside me. I hadn't slept a second. I was still on the floor, surrounded by fading photographs of fake smiles and half-memories. My back ached, my head throbbed, and I was seconds away from slipping into that numb autopilot state you reach when your brain is too tired to be angry anymore. But that buzz, that soft digital hum, pulled me back. I looked at the screen. The name made my stomach lurch. Rick. I hadn't thought about him in months. Maybe a year. Ever since he and Ellie just drifted apart, as she put it. Apparently, that was her preferred method of covering betrayal, drifting. One friend here, one friend there, gone without a trace. Replaced with silence and excuses. I thought he had moved away. Changed jobs. I never questioned it. But now here he was, reaching out to me. "Daryl, this is long overdue. I'm not reaching out to win favor or clear my name. I just want to set one record straight before you hear it elsewhere. I owe you that much." I stared at the message, blinking against the screen's glow. It was like reading a confession from a man who knew the fire had already started, and all he could do now was warn you how long it's been burning. His message went on for over 10 paragraphs, every sentence more painful than the last. He told me that what happened with Ellie wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't an emotional slip or a dark chapter. It was deliberate, pre-planned, long-term. They had been involved for over a year, meeting at hotels during work hours, using fake work events as cover. And the worst part, he said they used me as a punchline. Jokes about how oblivious I was, laughing at my weekend plans, my dad energy, my devotion, my trust. He said I was a coward. I thought if I kept quiet and walked away, maybe I'd erase it. But lately, I can't look at myself in the mirror, especially now that I know she's done it again and again. I stopped breathing. Done it again? He mentioned another man, one he didn't name, someone more recent. Not him. Not the original affair. A third. "I shouldn't be telling you this," Rick wrote, "but she's been with someone else since before Christmas. I know because she bragged about it to a mutual friend. Someone you still see. Someone you probably trust." My blood ran cold. I knew who he meant. And it wasn't just someone I still saw. It was someone who had sat at our table, who brought gifts for our kids, who helped me fix the gutter last fall. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even shocked. I was ashamed. ashamed of how blind I had been, how thoroughly manipulated, how easy it was for her to turn my entire reality into a lie and make me thank her for the scraps of truth she dropped. I didn't respond to Rick. What could I say? Thank you for finally deciding to have a conscience after gutting my marriage. Thank you for letting me know I was a running joke between you and my wife while I was packing school lunches. I powered off my phone and just sat there. That morning, I didn't wake the kids. I didn't make breakfast. I didn't brush my teeth. I just stared out the window, watching the neighbor's dog chase birds in the frosted yard, wondering how many other people knew and pitied me in silence. Around 10 a.m., she came down the stairs. I could hear her footsteps. Hesitant, not like usual. She peeked into the living room, saw me still in yesterday's clothes, and said cautiously, "Hey." I didn't turn around. "I think we should talk," she added, stepping inside. I finally faced her. "Is it true?" I asked flatly. "Was there another one?" "After Rick." Her face blanched. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "That's what I thought," I said before she could muster the first syllable. "You don't understand," she began. "Stop," I interrupted. "Please. I don't want another carefully edited version of the truth. I don't want you to protect my feelings with more lies. I just want silence." She looked like she might cry. Maybe she did. I don't know. I didn't watch her long enough to care. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. Through neighborhoods, past the grocery store, the elementary school, the diner we used to go to on Sundays. Every corner of this town held a version of us I didn't recognize anymore. Eventually, I parked near the old lake trail. I used to go there in my 20s when life felt too heavy. Back before marriage. Before fatherhood. Before I ever learned how betrayal could wear the same face that once kissed your forehead and said, "Forever." I sat on a bench and watched the wind ripple across the water, asking myself questions I didn't have answers to. How long do you stay for the kids? How much of yourself do you give before there's nothing left? When someone reduces you to a co-parent, do you still owe them kindness? I didn't know. But what I did know, sitting on that bench in the chill of early spring, was that something had to change. And it had to start with me. Because the version of me she thought she could quietly kill, the trusting, soft-spoken, patient husband, that man was gone. And what came next? Even I wasn't ready for it. When I came home that evening, I was calm. Not the kind of calm you get after meditating or listening to ocean waves, more like the cold stillness that follows a detonation. That eerie quiet when the noise has ended, but the wreckage still floats in the air. She was waiting in the kitchen. Same seat, same posture, like we were in some sick loop. She opened her mouth the second she saw me, but I raised my hand. "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to act." That froze her. "I'll be moving into the upstairs guest room. Permanently. Starting tonight." I said this like I was reading a business memo. "I've already drafted a temporary parenting schedule. We'll stick to it until we finalize the terms legally." Her eyes went wide. "Wait, are you saying you're leaving me?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and it hit me that she genuinely didn't expect it. Somehow, in her mind, she had convinced herself I'd endure anything, that I'd forgive every betrayal, every omission, as long as I got to tuck the kids in at night and call myself a husband in name only. "I'm not leaving," I said. "I'm reclaiming." She stared like she didn't understand the word. So I spelled it out. "I'm reclaiming the version of me you tried to erase. I'm not going to be your placeholder anymore. Not your backup plan. Not your guilt diffuser. Daryl, please." "No," I cut in. "We're not doing that. You don't get to collapse now. You stood tall when you decided I was nothing more than a co-parent. Now stand in that truth. Own it." She stood too, suddenly animated, voice rising. "So what? You're punishing me now? You're going to take the kids away from me." "This isn't punishment," I said coldly. "This is consequence." The room went quiet. That night, I moved my things upstairs. No drama. No slamming doors. Just me, folding clothes, carrying them in silence. She followed me halfway, hovering in the hallway like a ghost. "You're doing this to hurt me," she muttered. I looked up from the drawer I was filling. "No. If I wanted to hurt you, I'd tell the kids everything. I'd burn your reputation to the ground. I'd forward Rick's messages to your parents. But I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing what you couldn't. I'm protecting them. I'm preserving their world even while you torched ours." She turned pale and walked off. In the days that followed, things shifted fast. I started making moves. Quiet ones. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, opened a new bank account in my name, transferred my paycheck, and cut off the joint card. I didn't announce any of it. I didn't leave hints or passive-aggressive statements. I just acted. And here's the strange part. The more I pulled away, the more she chased. Suddenly, she was cooking dinner again, asking if I wanted to talk this through. She even started texting me in the middle of the day with things like, "Hope you're having a good one," smiley face, complete with emojis. Like we were high schoolers flirting after a fight. But it wasn't flirtation. It was panic. Because she realized too late what she had done. She had destroyed something she thought was indestructible. And now she was clawing at the rubble, hoping to find a version of me still soft enough to rebuild with. But that version no longer existed. I wasn't cruel. I didn't mock her. I didn't scream or throw things or air our dirty laundry online. I just stayed consistent, unbothered, focused. Then came the night she really lost control. I was tucking our daughter into bed when she called me downstairs. Her voice was calm, too calm. That's always how you know the storm is coming. I walked down to find her holding my phone. "You left this in the bathroom." "Thanks," I said, reaching for it. But she didn't let go. "I saw the name on your lock screen," she said slowly. "Maddie." I took the phone from her hand without responding. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "So now you're talking to her? After everything?" I stared at her, tired beyond explanation. "You lost the right to question my conversations when you decided I was just a co-parent," I replied. "And Maddie? She's the only person in this mess who didn't lie to me." "You think she's your savior?" she snapped. "She's manipulative. She's honest," I said firmly. "That alone makes her more valuable than anything you've offered me in years." The silence between us grew thick. And then she said it, the one sentence that almost made me laugh from the sheer nerve of it. "I think you're being unfair to me." Unfair? Unfair? This woman had cheated, lied, gaslight, treated my loyalty like a doormat. And now that I'd finally stood up and walked away, I was the one being unfair? I shook my head slowly. "Ellie, the only unfair thing here is that it took me this long to stop loving you." Her face collapsed. That's the only word I have for it, collapsed. Like her entire identity had been kicked out from under her. And that was when I knew she had finally realized I wasn't bluffing. That the emotional hold she thought she had on me had snapped for good. But what she didn't know, that was just the beginning. Because someone else had reached out to me. Not Rick. Not Maddie. Someone from her family. And what they told me changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I married. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary, painfully gray. The kind where the sky looks like a faded sweater, and you can't tell whether it's morning or afternoon without checking a clock. I was working from the dining table, the living room still felt poisoned, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Local area code, but not saved in my contacts. I hesitated before answering. I wasn't in the mood for spam calls or awkward small talk with acquaintances who'd just heard the news. But the second I picked up and heard the voice on the other end, everything inside me shifted. "Daryl, it's Nora, Ellie's sister." My heart skipped. Nora and I hadn't spoken in over a year. She'd been distant even before the fallout, always traveling for work and rarely making it to family gatherings. She was blunt, almost cold at times, but she had a certain integrity I respected. If she was calling, it wasn't casual. "I hope I'm not overstepping," she said, her voice lower than I remembered. "But I think you need to know what's been going on. Ellie doesn't know I'm reaching out, and honestly, I don't care." I stood up slowly, walking away from the kids' homework scattered across the table. "Go on," I said, bracing myself. "She's been lying to you for longer than you think," Nora continued. "Not just about Rick, or the more recent guy. There's been more. I only found out because I stayed at Mom's for a week last month. Ellie came over one night thinking I wasn't there, and I overheard a conversation I was never supposed to hear." I sank into the nearest chair. "What did she say?" Nora hesitated. Then came the words that made my stomach knot. "She was laughing about you. About how easy it was to keep you in the dark. She told Mom that having you around made her life logistically convenient, and that you'd never actually leave because he's too soft, too proud of being the good guy. She said she kept you around because you made parenting easier." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. "She also said she'd try to keep you useful until she was ready to be single again," Nora added quietly. "I'm sorry, Daryl. I debated telling you. But watching you take the fall for everything, seeing how she spins the story like you were emotionally unavailable, it's disgusting." There was a long silence between us. "She's preparing for something, isn't she?" I finally said. "That's why she's been so sweet lately." "Yes," Nora replied. "She wants to control the narrative before you do. She's getting sympathy lined up. positioning herself. You're being framed as cold, detached, emotionally checked out. She wants to file first so she can make it look like she's the one who had no choice. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling as if it could offer clarity. Thank you, I said, for telling me. Don't let her flip the script, Daryl, Nora said sharply. She doesn't get to victimize herself after building this mess. After we hung up, I sat in stillness. For a long time. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't sure what I was doing at first, just typing blindly. But it turned into a letter. Not to her. Not to a lawyer. To myself. A kind of manifesto. A reminder of everything I'd let slide. Every red flag I had painted white. Every moment I bit my tongue instead of asking what I should have. It was angry. Sad. Exhausted. But it was honest. And when I finished, I copied it. I saved it in multiple places. And then I printed it. One copy. Folded it. Tucked it in an envelope. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it. Not yet. But I knew it wasn't meant to sit in a drawer. One day, someone would read it. Maybe her. Maybe the kids. Maybe just me in 10 years, needing to remember why I chose what came next. That night, Ellie tried again. She made dinner. Lit a candle. Played that playlist she always used during better times. It was such a transparent manipulation, it almost made me laugh. You hungry? She asked gently. I ate already, I said, not looking up from my phone. A pause. Then, we should talk. I feel like we're still not, okay. I stood up slowly and met her eyes. We're not. But I am. She blinked, confused. What does that mean? It means I've accepted the truth. That you don't love me. That maybe you never did. That I was just the reliable man who filled the time between your lies. Her eyes welled up. You don't mean that. I mean every word, I said. And it's okay. You did what you did. I let it happen for too long. But I'm not going to play along anymore. Not with the fake dinners. Not with the fragile routines. We're not a couple. You said it yourself. So let's stop pretending we're anything but what you wanted us to be, a co-parenting agreement with a mortgage. Her tears fell this time. Real ones. But they didn't move me. Not like before. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it back. And for the first time since this all began, she whispered something I never expected to hear from her lips. Please, don't leave me. But it was too late. Because I already had. The only difference was, I hadn't taken my body with me yet. But I would. And very soon. The next few days moved like a dream that refused to end. I wasn't present anymore. Not in the way people mean when they say they're trying. I wasn't even angry. I was operating on a level beneath emotions. Detached. Functional. Quiet. The shell of me got the kids dressed, poured their cereal, signed their field trip forms. But the real me? He was already gone. Watching everything from a distance, like a ghost haunting the house of a man who hadn't realized he'd already died. She was spiraling now, Ellie. Trying to reel me back with charm she thought I'd forgotten how to resist. One morning she put on the dress she knew I always loved, the dark green one she used to wear when we were still US. She made my favorite breakfast, like we weren't just coexisting in a graveyard of broken vows. And then, like clockwork, she left a handwritten note on my desk. I didn't read it. Not at first. But I kept it. Part of me wanted to know what the final pitch looked like. Part of me needed to see the desperation on paper. I finally opened it after dinner that night. One of those quiet hours after the kids were in bed, when the house feels like it's trying to hold its breath. The letter was 4 paragraphs long. A blend of apology and manipulation disguised as vulnerability. She talked about the pressure of motherhood, how she felt alone for years, how things just got away from her. Not once did she say the words, I lied, or I cheated. She danced around those truths like they were landmines. Instead, she focused on us rebuilding, said she wanted to fight for this. I folded the letter once, then again, then dropped it into the trash. Not with anger, just with finality. That same night, I made my last move. It started with a single email to my lawyer. I'm ready. File it. Then I moved on to the logistics. I had already been planning in secret for over a week. The apartment was secured. Just a short drive from the kids' school. Small, quiet, clean. 2 bedrooms. Enough room for them to have a familiar corner of their world when they were with me. I scheduled the movers, scheduled the utilities, set up a P.O. box. I even made a checklist for the fridge, everything from pediatrician numbers to the kids' shoe sizes. I wasn't abandoning my responsibilities. I was redefining the frame I would live them in. I didn't tell her I was leaving. Not yet. I knew it would only lead to screaming, sobbing, last-ditch efforts to rewrite history. I didn't want to see that version of her anymore. The performance was exhausting. Instead, I picked a Friday. I arranged for the kids to stay at my sister's that night. Made up a sleepover story. Ellie bought it. She was busy preparing for some community event she wanted to attend. Her calendar still had color-coded optimism bleeding from the margins. That Friday morning, I acted like it was just another day. I poured coffee, tied my son's shoes, kissed my daughter's forehead, gave Ellie a polite good luck as she packed her things for the event. She smiled at me cautiously, like maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning back in her favor. But she had no idea that while she was shaking hands and making small talk in some decorated church gymnasium, the house was being emptied behind her. The movers were swift and respectful. I had labeled every box. I wasn't taking furniture, just clothes, books, photos, the kids' favorite toys, and the truth. I was taking that with me too. By sunset, I was gone. I left her a single envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was the filed divorce paperwork, my new address, and a note, short and handwritten, like hers. Only mine didn't beg. It just told the truth. You taught me how to disappear. Now you get to feel it too. Co-parenting schedule remains unchanged. Don't try to find me tonight. I turned off my phone, sat on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and silence. And for the first time in what felt like years, I slept. Deeply. Without flinching. Without imagining her footsteps, or rehearsing the next argument, or wondering how much of our life had been real. The next day, she called over a dozen times. Then came the texts. Some furious. Some pleading. Some confusingly neutral, like, did you take the charger in the bathroom? As if this was some minor tiff we could untangle by returning an object. I didn't reply. That evening, my sister dropped off the kids. They ran into the apartment like it was a grand adventure. They didn't cry. They didn't ask why. I'd rehearsed what to say, but I didn't have to. They were just happy to see me. Happy to have space with me. Happy to be heard. We made spaghetti, burned garlic bread, laughed about nothing. And then, while brushing her teeth, my daughter asked me one question I wasn't ready for. Are you and Mommy still married? I crouched beside her, met her eyes in the mirror, and said, we're still your parents. Always. But we're going to live in 2 houses now, so things are a little easier for everybody. She nodded like that made perfect sense. Like children always do when they see the truth without the filters adults wrap it in. That night, after I put them to bed, I looked out the window. The city lights blinked like they were trying to speak. And I realized I wasn't grieving anymore. I was rebuilding. Quietly, fiercely, and without permission. It was a full week before she showed up. I knew she would eventually. Not because she wanted to fix things, that ship had sunk in silence long ago, but because she needed to see it with her own eyes. The life I built without her. The proof that I didn't crumble without her apologies, her explanations, her almost love. It was Saturday afternoon. The kids and I were painting cardboard spaceships on the balcony. I had on an old t-shirt covered in blue smudges. My daughter had glitter in her hair, and my son had turned a paintbrush into a lightsaber. We were a mess. A loud, joyful, colorful mess. That's when the knock came. I knew it was her before I even opened the door. Something in the rhythm. Hesitant, yet expectant. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened it. There she stood, Ellie. Clean, polished, too put together for a casual visit. Her eyes scanned past me quickly, probably trying to take in the place. The boxes were gone. The shelves were full. The photos on the wall weren't of us. They were of me and the kids. Of them laughing, messy, alive. I shouldn't have come unannounced, she said. You did anyway, I replied calmly. She nodded, swallowing hard. I didn't come to make a scene. Good, I said, stepping aside. But keep your voice low. They're in the middle of building a rocket to Mars. She gave a tiny, breathless laugh, then followed me in. I offered her a seat. She didn't take it. Instead, she stood in the center of the room, looking around like someone walking through a museum of a life they missed out on. This is nice, she said. You've made it feel like home. It is home, I said. The kids love it here. She nodded. Her hands twisted at the hem of her sleeve. I wanted to say thank you. That surprised me. For what? For not making it worse, she said. For keeping things steady for the kids. For not dragging my name through the mud. I shrugged. I didn't do it for you. I know, she said quietly. And I'm not here to beg or fix things. I know I broke something that can't be put back. But I needed to see that you were okay. I looked at her. Really looked. There was sadness there. Yes, but not the manipulative kind. Not the panic-driven desperation. Just acceptance. She had lost something, and she finally understood it. I'm more than okay, I said. I'm finally myself. She smiled, but her eyes glistened. Good. You deserve that. There was a long pause. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. I wrote something. For the kids. About everything. The right way? No blame. Just honesty. I took it from her, surprised. Thank you. She nodded and backed toward the door. I'll text before pickups from now on. No more guessing. Appreciate it. She opened the door, then turned once more. I hope someday you find someone who sees you the way you always saw me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The moment was complete. She left. I stood there for a while, envelope in hand, until I heard giggles from the balcony. Dad, my son shouted. Our rocket needs paint fuel. I laughed. A real laugh. Deep in my chest. I walked back outside, picked up the glittery bottle, and joined them. Life didn't just go on. It bloomed. There was no dramatic reunion. No revenge. No fanfare. Just peace. Earned, not gifted. And that, I've come to believe, is the rarest kind of happy ending. One where you don't get back what you lost. You build something better.